helmet.
Hello and welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another round of the Middle of the Pack Racing League GT3 Championship for 2022, as brought to you on the Premier Sim Racing platform available only on PC, known as iRacing. And today marks round number 2 of the 9-round championship calendar, where our drivers have made their way from Austria, where we were of course in our season opener last time out the Red Bull Ring, to neighbouring Germany for the Hockenheimring Baden-Württemberg circuit. It is the case that we continue our Euro Cup today with another sprint race round, and let's take you through our scheduled times in British summertime. That's BST, or Universal Coordinated Time, UTC +1. It is the case that in just under 13 minutes time we'll be going into the qualifying session, our closed qualifying session for 10 minutes. We'll get the perspective of one of our drivers as they take us around for their free flying laps in that 10-minute window, and I do believe it will be Jason Landry who will be taking us around the circuit in the Porsche 991 GT3 machine, and then after that we'll be setting the grid for the purposes of our one and only race tonight. As we said earlier, it is a sprint race round, and therefore we'll have another 25-minute sprint race on the cards, and that'll be at approximately what will be 5 to 8 this evening. 25 minutes of racing action, no pit stops. It is the case. It's do or die. You need to get to the front of your class, whether you're pro, prime or am, and bring it home with the maximum possible points, of course. And if you can get the fastest lap as well, you get the bonus points on top. Now, we should point out that this broadcast is a post-round broadcast, so the race itself happened earlier this week, happened on Wednesday the 14th of September, but it is the case we're bringing it to you live as if it were live, and it is the case that I, as your host and commentator, do not know what happens in any of the sessions, where it's the final warm-up practice session that's currently underway, alternatively the qualifying session and how they line up for the grid, or who comes out on top in the respective classes come the end of the race, or any of the drama out of the circuit. And my goodness, we did see some drama on lap 1, turn number 1 in race number 1 last time out, and the fact that as our drivers emerged from the corner, there was quite the coming together of multiple drivers, particularly in the AM and Prime classes, emerging from turn number 1, and we'll hopefully not see a repeat of that tonight, given the fact there is a tricky turn 1 here at the Hockenheimring circuit. But I think things will now settle down, those nerves will have calmed down, and to be fair, all the drivers try to race as cleanly as possible, and keeping it clean is the way to success, there's no doubt about that. And in terms of your broadcast tonight, it is the case that you can tune in via 2 media platforms for your viewing pleasure. Firstly, you can tune in via twitch.tv/TX141. Alternatively, if you're more of a YouTube person, you can always tune in via youtube.com, searching for TX141TX, alternatively Paul Walsh, and you can tune in on the channel there. And who is TX141? Well, it is I, your host and commentator, Paul Walsh, also known as TX141 or Brit of the Spit, depending on what media you follow me on, and I shall be your commentator and broadcaster for this series from start to finish. And after a brilliant season opener, it is the case the story continues today, and we're expecting even more fireworks. But we talked earlier about the fact that this is a 9-round championship. Let's tell you a little bit more about the calendar that lies ahead, and also what has lain in the past. It is the case, of course, last time out we started off the Euro Cup, with this series being broken up into 3 stages, or 3 cups in this case. The Euro Cup was where we start off at the Red Bull Ring all the way back on the 7th of September, and today, of course, we're providing coverage of the Hockenheimring race that occurred on the 14th of September. Next time out, we'll be making our way to Silverstone for the first of our 3 feature race rounds, where they're at the end of each of the cups, and of course making our way across the channel to the British circuit of Silverstone for the 21st of September, where our drivers will be going racing for the first time in feature race conditions, where there'll be that pit stop on the cards and everything else in between, with the strategic nuances also playing into the overall battling and aggression. After that, we've taken a week's break before making our way over to the North American continent initially for the America's Cup to kick off at Road Atlanta, the roller coaster ride of a circuit, on the 5th of October. And then round number 5, we'll see our drivers make their way further north into Canada for Circuit Charles Villeneuve, of course the venerable circuit named after the driver from Canada himself. And then we'll be concluding the America's Cup in round number 6 on the 19th of October on the South American continent at none other than Sao Paulo, or Interlagos, the brilliant circuit for our second feature race round. And then another week's break before returning for the commencement of the Japanese Cup. That's Cup number 3, where rounds 7 to 9 will all take place in Japan. And here's the case where we're going to Twin Rim Motegi on the 2nd of November, then Suzuka Circuit on the 19th of November, and then Fuji will wrap the series up on the 16th of November for our final feature race round. But with a calendar absolutely stacked like this, here's the case we've got a long way to go, and indeed every 25 minutes will feel like a long way to go in a sprint race, and the Hockenheimring is no exception. This circuit is definitely going to be a big challenge, and more on that in a brief moment. But the key thing is now, as we look from our season ahead on our calendar, let's talk a little bit about the standings after round number 1, starting with our Pro Drivers' Championship. Remember, there are 3 classes here, Pro, Prime and Am, and it is the case these classes were assigned pre-season, and we should point out there has been a recent announcement that it will be the case that the Drivers' Championship classes, so Pro, Prime and Am, will be adjusted potentially after the end of the Euro Cup. It is the case that once we get to the end of round number 3, we will be seeing our drivers finalised in terms of our entrance. Nobody else will be allowed to join the series from round 4 onwards effectively. So it is the case that after round number 3, if anybody joins, it will be in round number 3, or alternatively they'll start in round number 4, and after that no more new joiners in order to preserve the sanctity of the driver classes and the cups. And the classes I should say, shall be finalised from round 4 onwards after some adjustment. But as we look to the Pro class here, it is the case that after one round, Luke Burtonshaw leads on 53 points versus Jason Landry on 47 points, and an interesting rivalry between the two of them at the Red Bull Ring. We saw that Burtonshaw was the faster of the pair, but Jason Landry seemed to have a massive spurt of confidence midway through the race, really took the fight to Burtonshaw, but Burtonshaw dug deep and held Landry at bay, the two Porsche drivers, and we can imagine they'll be going toe-to-toe once again tonight. P3 there, Tanner Dibble on 44 points, keeping John Lauzon at bay, and we're expecting plenty more from both Dibble and Lauzon here today. And then Ben Rose, Jordan Button, Edwin Offray completing the Pro standings, and we unfortunately have to announce that Edwin Offray will not be joining us for the foreseeable future as he has picked up COVID-19. Unfortunately, we do wish him well. Everybody down in the paddock was sorry to hear that, but we do hope he's doing the best he can, and we look forward to his return hopefully by the end of the series, because I'm sure you'll agree we absolutely miss seeing him out of the circuit, the fast Pro driver. But as we now come to our Pro-Am class, it is the case that our championship leader here, Jermaine Warren, and well, that 40 point to 39 point delta of 1 point between Warren and Logsdon really does reflect what happened at the Red Bull Ring last time out. Now, Jermaine Warren, you could argue, was your outright winner by a couple of seconds, but he seemed to struggle towards the end of the race at the Red Bull Ring. And it was the case that behind him, James Logsdon and Spencer Torrance had an absolutely huge battle that raged on for the best part of 15 of the 25 minutes. That was right. It is the case. They really stole the centre of the attention of our cameramen, and we absolutely love to see Logsdon and Torrance go toe-to-toe. Logsdon getting the upper hand on his rival, and you can imagine that rivalry is going to continue today, and they'll both be salivating at the prospect of bringing Jermaine Warren into the mix and getting their first win on the board. But let's not count out Ilya Speaker in P4 on 37 points, only 1 point clear of Justin Braggan, and it was the case that both Speaker and Braggan struggled to get close enough to get into that fight. There were points where they were close, but they just could not get themselves right in there to make it a four-way fight for second place. But will they be able to do so tonight? Roger Ganesh there, P6, ahead of Fernando Takahashi, P7, and then Blake Phillips, Braden Melling, and John Wilding complete the standings there in the Pro-Am class. And as we come to the Am class standings, it is the case that Matthew Smith leads after an emphatic win last time out at the Red Bull Ring by only a point over Adrian Fedorowski, and then Mark Senegal completes the top 3. Dan Ocaranza in P4 there on 31 points, 2 clear of Michael Zepp, and then Lee Porter, PG Christensen, Stefan Chalafu, Glenn Bratton, and Kevin Lizarazo are completing the top 10 in the Am class, with Jesse Jamison Jr. in P11. And it was a difficult day for our Am drivers outside of the top 5, in the fact that the majority of them were involved in that opening lap incident and did not have the race go their way, and they'll be looking to have a much more stable start to their racing tonight. You can count on that. But as for our circuit, of course, it is none other than the Hockenheimring Baden-Württemberg circuit, the Grand Prix layout in particular, and it is in the Am Motordrome in Hockenheim, the region of Baden-Württemberg in Germany. And for those of you who are anoraks of racing, you will remember there used to be a much longer layout of the Hockenheimring, which ran all the way into the forest in the region. But it is the case, of course, that circuit was shut down towards the end of what was the 1990s into the early 2000s, given the fact it was not seen as productive for motorsport from both a driving perspective and also a viewer's perspective, although that's up to debate, of course, and particularly the Formula 1 debate, which raged on for some time. And it is the case that this is one of the very early Hermann Tilke designed circuits, and well, what a circuit it is with multiple layouts, but we're running the full Grand Prix layout here, consisting of 16 corners, as you can see from the circuit map provided us by simracingwiki.com. And this circuit is very interesting in the fact it could be considered to be split into two halves. There's the power half, which starts off in the run to turn number 1 through the Nord curve at turn 1, a sweeping right-hander, very tricky to overtake into, and drivers going too wide there to be very careful of that apex curve, and also the exit curve, which has a V-shaped dip in it, and that could cause the rear of the car to become unsettled. But if they survive that, they'll be charging all the way out towards the Einfahrt Parabolica at turns 2, 3, 4, and it is the case that right-hand hairpin into a left-right complex, and as they roll the way on out, all the way through the Parabolica curve at turn number 5, charging up towards the Spitzkehre hairpin at turn 6, that's where the first half of the circuit really ends, although you could say it ends at turn number 7, because we go from straightaways and heavy braking zones into more technical aspects. We have the first small stadium section of turn 7 through to 10. We'll see our drivers driving into the initial part of the Mercedes arena and battling their way through what is essentially a triangular set of corners, after which they will merge onto a short straightaway between turns 10 and 11 before charging their way into the full stadium, the Mercedes Stadium, of turns 11 through to 16. And it is the case there as they make their way into the Mobile 1 curve of turn at number 11. They'll be heading into the hairpin of turn 12, the banked camber hairpin of turn 12, where we have seen many a driver fall foul in real world motorsport in recent years. Some of you may remember one Sebastian Vettel in falling one in the rain, getting it wrong at turn number 12 and sending the car into the barrier when he was right on the course for victory for Ferrari, if my memory serves me correctly. But that was a difficult day for the German driver at his home circuit. And well, if any of our drivers are German, they won't be wanting to have a difficult day here today either. But as they emerge out of that arena, they head through turns 15 and 16, the double right to complete the lap and do it all over again. But you can see that second half is more technical in nature compared to the first half. And we'll bring you some on board in the qualifying session. But as for our rules, let's give you a reminder of those rules. It is the case we do have a slight change in the rules, and you may already see it in bright red there, but we'll go through them once again. In terms of setup, our drivers shall run the iRacing sprint setup for all rounds, and what makes it interesting tonight is we have had a recent balance of performance adjustment in iRacing across the classes, and particularly in the GT3 class, and we'll have to wait to see how that changes things up in terms of the relative pace of the cars. And also we can see that, as per usual, car fuel loads have been restricted to 51% for all rounds. In qualifying, a lone qualifying format shall be used for this round. It is the case it's open to debate amongst our drivers. There is a bit of discussion ongoing at the moment with regards to whether lone qualifying will continue, as it does mean we only get to see one car in qualifying out of the circuit, with each driver having an isolated instance of the circuit. Some prefer to have everybody out on track at once, some prefer to have a class out on track at once, and some prefer the lone qualifying format, and we'll have to wait to see what materialises there. And drivers will have 3 laps or 10 minutes to set their best possible time, whichever occurs first. In the sprint race itself, the race will start under a manual double file rolling start, but the key rule change here is that the formation is now being held up to the green flag. We have changed it from going at the start-finish line of the circuit due to a bit of confusion in round number 1. Some of you may recall that some drivers towards the midfield decided to go a little bit early, and that caused a bit of confusion, also towards the front, if my memory serves me well. And it is the case here, we're going back to the traditional iRacing fashion. As soon as we go green, we go racing. Now, each driver has 1 fast repair available, and the driver shall receive a drive-through penalty if they accumulate 25 or more instant points. And that's enough rules, regulations and whatnot in between. I know what you're all here for, and we're here for it too in the broadcast booth. It is the case we're here for the live racing action. And as our drivers make their way on around right now, we do look to our Pro Championship leader after round number 1, the Vector by RSR driver of Luke Burtonshaw here. And as he makes his way on through, we do have a little bit of extension to this practice session, so we are running about 5 minutes behind schedule. Unfortunately, things have carried away from us a little bit, but you can see here as Burtonshaw makes his way on down. In fact, I think we will be going live for that, what is a quarter to 8 with qualifying, but that time at the top of your screen is a little bit inaccurate. It's out by 5 minutes almost, but as Burtonshaw makes his way on around right now, definitely looking as though he wants to hook it up here today and deliver once again after a brilliant delivery at the Red Bull Ring. But you have to keep in mind that Jason Andrews, currently in the pit lane, will be looking to try and outfox his British counterpart. But it's not just about the pros, of course, it's also about the pros, and we do see here Ilya Speaker making their way around for the final corner of the Rockefeller Racing driver here. And you'll notice that some of our drivers do have their teams listed now. It is the case a call was put out to all of our drivers to try and get all their information available in to the broadcast as well, and we've done everything we can, because a lot of these drivers, of course, race for official teams on iRacing, and they are absolutely being deprived of the opportunity to represent their teams as they make their way around. Despite the fact there's no teams championship in this series, it is the case a little bit of team pride goes a long way, as we see James Longston here, the American driver from Team Bearpoke, making his way through turn number 12 in the Mercedes AMG Evo 2020 machine. And my goodness, the battle, of course, between him and his rival last time out, absolutely sensational. His rival, of course, Spencer Torrance, making his way on around right now on his initial flying lap in this practice session, looking to set a time here, perhaps waiting until the very end. Bit of contact there with the Audi R8 just in front. I think a bit of miscommunication between the two. But speaking of communication, we do look to what is the chat there. And of course, if you are tuning in on YouTube or Twitch and you've got access to the chat, we can see both chats. And don't be shy, feel free to say hi. And speaking of some people who've already said hi, it is the case in the YouTube chat. We've got Jason Landry there saying looking forward to this as usual. As we transition over to qualifying, they're dead on the mark as what, at quarter to 8 British summer time in the evening. And we also say hello in the Twitch chat there to GT Eddie and also the real Tragic Johnson. I hope you guys are all doing well. And if you're tuning in right now and you're a little bit shy and don't want to say hi, you don't have access to the ability to say hi, well, it is the case. I hope you're having a great end to your week. It is Friday, of course, and that means the weekend is around the corner. And hopefully you're able to put your feet up, and you can start by getting ready to put your feet up by tuning in tonight. And well, Jason Landry makes his way out to the pit lane in this closed qualifying session, and as he heads on around, it is the case the Canadian driver will be our driver who gives us the laps today and gives you an idea of what to expect on a single lap at the Hockenheimring circuit. now making his way on around here. It's going to be interesting to see how the Porsche fares. We do know that normally its weakness has been its straight line speed, but it's a very strong car in terms of handling by comparison. But the recent balance performance update has seen some adjustments to its aero and also with regards to the suspension on the car. It may not be the suspension in fact, but I think it's definitely the aero, and the Porsche has picked up a little bit of speed on the straights. And of course, with all our drivers running fixed setups, they can't tweak the setup beyond brake bias on the car, which determines how much brake loading goes to the front brakes and the rear brakes when they go into a braking zone. But it is the case that with that balance of performance adjustment that's been applied to all the cars, we may see a little bit of a mix up here. But the Porsche will definitely excel from turn 7 onwards, but it is the case it may suffer a little bit in the run from turn 1 through to 6 along the way. And as Landry makes his way towards the end of this initial warm-up lap, of course, he has 3 laps to set a time, and those are 3 flying laps, making his way into the formal arena right now. And as he comes on in, will very shortly be riding on board as he makes his way through turn number 12 here, but looking hooked up already. Those tyres are up to temperature, up to relative temperature, and getting those brakes up as well. And as he makes his way through the chicane of 13 and 14, head through 15, we ride on board with Jason Landry as he takes us on to his first flying lap of this qualifying session. Now making his way out to the final corner then, and heading up towards turn number 1 here. Looking for his brake mark on the left-hand side, a bit of dab of the brakes as he makes his way in from 5th down to 4th. A snap down shift there, just clearing the apex curve nicely, avoiding the sausage on the curve which will unsettle the car, and now charging all the way down towards turn number 2. Going back onto the brakes here for turn number 2, braking all the way down from the 100 metre board to second gear, bringing it through the right-hander and then gradually through turns 3 and 4 as he full throttle accelerates out to turn number 4 now and all the way down towards the Spitzkehre hairpin of turn number 6. It's a long run here through Parabolica curve, completely flat out, but what you'll notice is he keeps the steering wheel locked slightly on to keep the car over to the left-hand side here to set himself up well for the hairpin. Looking at his brake mark on the left, looking for that 100 metre board, braking at about 125 metres, coming all the way down to first gear as this is the slowest corner on the circuit, completes the hairpin and now exits out and gets on the pound nice and early, brings the car back down to terra firma in terms of that rear end pointing to fly out, and now into the right-hander at turn number 7. Flat out through here, and taking a bit of apex curve and then braking into turn number 8 here, using the end of the initial entry curve on the right hand side for one of the DTM layouts as his marker for the braking zone, and then heading through turns 9 and 10, the left into right switch back here. A bit of apex curve there, almost unsettling the car, but Landry keeping his foot in, full commitment, and now making his way into turn number 11. Now no real forward braking marker here, but you'll notice that he may have used the spotlights on the right hand side as his brake marker, but going through 11 and now down into 12, braking at the 55 metre mark, rolling the car into the second gear left-hander at turn 12, and now accelerating out. It's all about momentum all the way to the end through turns 13 and 14, completely flat out, dab the brakes here into third gear through 15, and as he makes his way on through, keeps 2 wheels within the white lines, 2 beyond there to extend the entry into turn number 16 out to the corner. It's a nice lap there, and what's it going to be is our initial flying lap from Jason Landry is going to be a 36.438. Well, I definitely think there's more time out there because that is his first flying lap. The tyres are still building up temperature, and now they'll be up to their optimum temperature after they've been thrashed about for that first lap, and a bit more fuel's coming out the car. But definitely a nice lap to open up proceedings there. And as we look to the exterior cameras, of course, that Porsche does look quite well hooked up at this circuit. That's no doubt as he makes his way on around. But speaking of making his way on around, we make our way on around to look at the Twitch chat there, and we say hello to Dills_TV who waves, and we give you a proverbial virtual wave back, Dills, and I hope you're doing well. And also in the YouTube chat they're saying hello to Jerry, the race car driver. Good evening to you, Jerry. Hope you're having a good day and indeed a good evening and a good weekend ahead. But as Landry makes his way around this time, already going faster in what is sub-Sector 1, or in fact we should just say Sector 1. Again, we are using what is the Formula 1 sectors here, rather than breaking it up into more incremental sub-sectors, which iRacing does do every so often. In this case here, Landry definitely looking comfortable and really getting into a rhythm. And the thing about this circuit is, unlike the Red Bull Ring, you do want to get into a rhythm here, because this circuit has 2 very contrasting halves to it, and therefore, particularly in the second half, in this case, if you don't quite have that rhythm and you start to fall out of rhythm, you start to fall out of the zone in terms of hooking up those brake points, you can start to just feel that little bit of nervousness, and particularly in the car like the Porsche 911, given the fact that it's mid-engine rear-wheel drive and that engine is right towards the rear axle, you can imagine if you're not in the zone, that rear really starts to slide round under braking, particularly when tyre wear starts to accumulate or you're pushing it hard here. But Jason Landry having no such qualms as he comes through the final corner here. He's gone green in sectors 1 and 2, and he comes to the line this time around, and well, as he completes his second lap here, onto his final lap now, it's a 36.267, a beautiful lap there from Landry, and well, he's going to go one more time here as he makes his way around and flying on through. And of course, the German car at the German circuit, it's only fair that our German manufacturers here try to do their best to represent their home nation as they make their way around. But of course, Jason Landry hailing from Canada in the number 5 car, and it is the case he makes his way around this final time here in his flying lap, looking good right now as he rolls his way on through. In terms of other considerations here, you can see that this circuit is actually quite open in terms of the width of the track, particularly in the run down towards turn number 6, but also going into what is turn 7, the start of the first arena section, and also turn number 11. There's a lot of width to this circuit, and that means overtaking opportunities do come in plentiful supply. However, it is the case there's no optimum line for the overtake here. You'll see drivers trying to go around the outside at some points, such as the Spitzkehre hairpin, which Landry's just come away from, and also you'll see drivers trying to dive to the inside and in between. So we can expect some rather exceptional overtakes here in terms of pronounced moves around the outside, potential cutbacks, and that's the thing about the Hockenheimring circuit. Whilst it wasn't popular when it was initially released onto motorsporting calendars, particularly for Formula 1, it is the case over the years it has definitely proven to be ever more popular. It is a staple now of the Fanatec GT World Challenge Europe calendar as well. And with that, the drivers are continuing to love this circuit day in, day out. And when it was announced that this circuit was going to be on the calendar for the GT3 Championship here by MPRL, it is the case a lot of drivers are very pleased to hear that. But we're pleased to hear that Jason Landry's making his way on through the final couple of corners. But as he does here, will it be an improved lap? Will he get himself into the 35s? Or is he gone too far with that 36.267? He crosses the line. It's not enough to improve in the end. Missing out in that second sector, not quite hooking it up. Losing 8 tenths along the, well, not 8 tenths, 8 hundredths along the way. And that is his qualifying session complete. But speaking of qualifying sessions being complete, we'll be right back, ladies and gentlemen, in just a brief moment to get ready to go racing. Alrighty, ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, let's take you through the grid as they line up for round number 2. So here we go then. For round 2 of the GT3 Championship hosted by Middle of the Pack Racing League on iRacing, we can see Jason Landry in the end taking pole position with that 36.33, out-qualifying Tanner Dibble in the end. Dibble having a great qualifying session, only a tenth off a pole in P2 in the DNA Motorsports machine. And then behind them on row number 2, it's the two pros of Jordan Butler from DNA Motorsports and Shane Larson in the SRD Road LMP2 machine. And it is the case that he'll be in the Porsche, and will Shane Larson, a newcomer to the series tonight. James Logston, our highest qualifying pro-am there, taking pro-am pole in P5, the Team Bear Pope machine, and he will be joined by Luke Burtonshaw, vectored by RSR's driver there in P6. Behind them will be Milan Harris, P7 there for Rockefeller Racing, joined by Matthew Smith, who starts P8, your AM pole sitter. A great qualifying lap there by Matthew Smith, and definitely trying to make it 2 out of 2 here today in the AM class in terms of victories. John Wilding from DNA Motorsport starts off P9, and he is joined on the 5th row by Ilya Speaker in P10, the Rockefeller Racing driver, and then behind them we have Justin Braggan, P11, the privateer, joined by John Lauzon from Blue Flag Motorsports, the Canadian having a difficult qualifying session, the pro only starting P12. Behind him on row number 7, we have Braden Millen, and he'll be starting in P13, and he'll be joined by Fernando Takahashi, who starts P14 alongside him, the two pro drivers there. Lee Porter and Joe Nagy starting at P15, P16 respectively. Here's against the two AMs line up on our 8th row. Nagy being a newcomer to the series tonight, welcome to him. Jermaine Warren starts P17, joined by Dan Ocaranza in P18, the Chilean there, starting on the 9th row. Spencer Torrance and Jesse Jamieson Jr. make up our 10th row, and then behind them we have Michael Zepp from QZ Motorsports, joined by his teammate from QZ Motorsports of Jose Mauri. And then making our way onto row number 12, we have Roger Ganesh and Glenn Bratton starting P23, P24. And on our final row, we have PG Christensen and Stefan Chalafu, P25, P26, with Chalafu not setting a time in qualifying, and Christensen struggling, it would seem, 6 seconds off of the pole lap. But as our drivers make their way around on the short formation lap here, we've not got long to go. And as we look down to the circuit, it will be to Jason Landry to take us to the green very shortly for 25 minutes of racing. And it's lights out and away we go here as Landry goes late. They charge down towards turn number 1. Round 2's underway. And as they head into the right-hander here, you can see Tanner Dibble looking around the outside. No way through immediately. A lot of two wides here as I'm trying to come on through. But most surviving it so far as they all make the way in the long dash down towards turn number 2. And as they do, Landry here has still got Dibble look up the inside. But Luke Burton's already gained 1 place on Jordan Butler and continue to try and do more as he makes his way out of the corners. They roar their way down towards Spitzkehre hairpin. But as they do, you can see Burtonshaw now along the outside here of what will be Dibble into turn number 6. They make the way through. Further back, Fernando Takashi's had a spin at turn number 2 and he's rejoining gradually. I'm hearing in my rear era. And as they make the way down towards turn number 6, it is the case we can see here. Burtonshaw trying to go round the outside, no way through. Meanwhile, a bit further back there, we've got a bit of a mix-up between Matthew Smith and also Logston and Harris in front, with Harris getting ahead of Logston as they make the way out to the hairpin. And as they do here, well, Harris now gaining the ground on Logston and taking the lead of the Pro-Am class here as they make the way through turn number 7. Now as they roll the way up into the arena, it is the case that Harris, a newcomer to the series as of tonight, looking good right now as the Rockefeller Racing driver. And in front, Shane Larson getting it very wrong, very all sorts of wrong, coming out to turn number 9. Then the Audi driver, the Porsche driver, under a bit of pressure as he makes his way up into turn number 11. But further back there, we can see it is the case that Jesse Jameson Jr. in the Mercedes falling out of step at turn number 10. The rear of the car not settling down and almost losing it as they make the way in to the second arena here. And as they make the way into the braking zone for turn number 12 right now, Jameson having to settle down soon. He's gained 2 places since the start of this race, so he's made ground, but it is the case he won't make mistakes like that too often, as always he could find himself losing ground very rapidly indeed. But as they come to the end of lap number 1, it's Landry who leads, followed by Dibble in P2, Burtonshaw 3, followed by Butler in P4, followed by Larson P5, a little bit further back from the top 4. You've got Milan Harris, your leader in the Pro-Am class, P6, followed by Logston in P7, Matthew Smith P8, your AM leader still leading after the start of the race, John Wilding in P9, followed by Ilya Speaker P10, then Lauzon best the rest in P11 as they come into the braking zone for turn 2 once again. They roll the way in this time, and meanwhile a bit further back here we can see Jermaine Warren gaining 1 place at the start, as meanwhile Lee Porter being passed there slightly off camera by Joe Nagy as they make the way out to 2 and up towards turn 6 they charge. But as they make the way in the long run here, it is the case in terms of our biggest gain at the start of this race, it is Luke Burtonshaw jointly with, I believe, Roger Ganesh, both of them gaining 3 places. But look at Smith here. Smith taking a little peek to the inside versus what is there, Logston, and not able to find it. In fact, it was the case that Wilding taking a peek on Smith, I should say, so not quite the way we interpret it, but as they make the way out to turn number 6 at this point, charging into the right-hander at turn 7. Everybody's settling down right now. I think everybody just trying to find a bit of temperature in the car, get themselves into the racing spirit as they make the way on through on this second lap. And to be fair as well, it's a bit of an unknown for most drivers here in the fact that with the balance of performance adjustment, they're not quite sure where their cars are as strong as the others anymore, and they're trying to figure that out nice and early. As meanwhile, we see in the rear of the picture there, well, BMW's going a bit wide, and I believe that was Justin Braggan in the privateer machine getting it wrong coming out to turn at number 10 as we're hearing. Meanwhile, that Jameson Jr. has just passed Lee Porter, but Braggan gets it all sorts of wrong coming through 11, and he's got a Lamborghini trying to go around the outside here of Braden Melling, but can the Canadian get it done? No, he's made away, as it is the case that Braggan goes defensive. They roll the way through the chicane and into 15, and Justin Braggan definitely needs to find a way to get that BMW M4 to point straight right now, because it does not want to do so, and right now he's under pressure from the RS by Skyline Designs driver as they make the way to the end of lap number 2. But as they come across the line once again here, it is the case the field starting to open up a little bit towards the rear. Meanwhile, we look a bit further out the road, and John Wilding here currently chasing after Matthew Smith and not able to find a way through, but Speaker meanwhile, oh goodness me, Lauzon comes from nowhere from further back, and you can see that Speaker thought about it, and Lauzon said, well, I'm going to do what you want to do, but I can do it too. And as they make the way out to turn number 4 here, down through Parabolica Curve they go. Lauzon, of course, having to really be careful, and Speaker having to open the steering wheel in order to avoid contact there. Well, Lauzon left it late, but credit to him, and they survived it, and he's still there on the inside, and surely he's thinking about going for the move here into the hairpin. He's got to, given the tenacity he's shown. He's on that inside. Speaker's going to have to run around the outside, but keep in mind, of course, we do have that yellow rumble strip on the outside, which does destabilise the cars. They put 2 wheels onto it as they make the way side by side into turn number 7 right now, rolling in. They'll both have to lift to the right-hander, but Lauzon gets the move done. The Speaker try and come back here, trying to do a Lauzon into turn number 8. He tries it, but Lauzon carries the momentum around the outside to inside here into turns 9 and 10, and as a result, John Lauzon finally gains the place there, and that took a lot of bravery to get it done. But to be fair, you got to be bold sometimes, and Lauzon definitely the boldest of the breakers. As meanwhile, a bit further back, We can see Lee Porter there in the privateer machine in the Audi R8, not quite on the base right now as he's falling back behind Nagy gradually as they roll the way through turn number 12. But with Lawson and Speaker battling there for P10 to be the overall top 10 driver, it is the case that everybody behind now starting to cluster together, and I will wonder whether that powder keg is being ignited, and we may see the likes of Melling, Nagy and Porter all trying to come on through. But as they come to the end of another lap and make the way on through towards turn number 1 here, we're hearing that PG Christensen's had to jump to the pits after an off track. It's gone wrong for him. Stefan Schaller, who's also retired from this race. And meanwhile, we've got a bit of, oh goodness me, I'm not sure what's happened there, but it's the case we've got two drivers off, and that's Braden Melling and also what is John Lauzon, both at turn number 1. We won't be able to get you a replay of that, unfortunately, due to iRacing replay file limitations, but it's all gone sorts of wrong there. And meanwhile, Jermaine Warren, well, now he's under pressure because he's got Spencer Torrance trying to come for him. Spencer Torrance, after a brilliant day at the Red Bull Ring, it's not working out in terms of overall pace right now, but he's battling for P4 in the Brown class, P11 overall, as they make the way up towards turn number 6. He's going to look around the outside here. Will the Firelight Motorsports drivers, they make the way into the braking zone for the hairpin. Now, can he try and outfox the Ferrari driver, Jermaine Warren? Well, Warren's had to defend deep on the inside in terms of he's had to really stop the car in that apex, and you're forced to, given how tight it is, but he's not able to find a way on through. And as we ride on board here with the Firelight Motorsports driver from the dashboard, it is the case that Torrance is staying close, but not able to find the move at the moment. That Ferrari, to be fair, a car that's very sensitive to tyre temperature and tyre wear. It does look as though Warren feeling a bit of a pinch, as you can see Torrance trying to set him up for a cut back, and Torrance takes a bit too much curb at turn number 10, and he just unsettles the car. You can see what he's trying to do. He's trying to go for a cut back there, but just a little bit premature on turning into turn number 10, but I think it's coming in terms of an attempt for the pass. But as they make the way down towards turn number 12 at this point in time through the left-hander, it is the case we look from then to Speaker right now, who's trying to look for the move here after recovering. He's trying to make the move on what is their Wilding as they roll the way on through, but Speaker not able to do so. In fact, I think that's a wounded car there for Speaker. I wouldn't be surprised if he's coming into the pits. It's not looking fast as he makes his way through turn number 12, but looking from the midfield and towards the back of the field up to the front of the field, it is the case here. Here's your race leader. He continues to lead after qualifying on pole. Jason Landry, the privateer, in the number 5 car right now, leading by 7/10 over Tanner Dibble, but Dibble is not letting him go, and behind him Luke Burtonshaw, of course, gaining 3 places since the start, starting P6 as we hit the Wilding and Speaker are both into the pit lane for repair work on the cars. Well, Burtonshaw at this point trying to get a bit closer, but not quite able to at this time. Meanwhile, in the battle for the Bram lead, I can tell you that Milan Harris right now in the Mercedes, and if you're trying to figure out which one's which, it is the case it's the Rockefeller Racing Machine, the RR machine in pink and black. It is the case he's chasing after Shane Larson, the pro driver for P5, but in return we ride on board the gearbox here of Harris, and you can see he's got the pressure of Logston behind. Now Logston looks the long far away, but as they sometimes say, and you'll see it printed on your rear view mirror in your car, that objects may appear further than they seem. Well, it is the case here that Harris is not going to take it for granted that Logston is a long way away, because one mistake or one slight error, or if Logston absolutely nails it, it'll be right there. And look at this, they come out at 9 and 10, exactly the point being made. It's the case that Logston getting a better run there out of 10. Now, can he carry this momentum all the way up into the arena at turn 12? Well, I think he will stay close here, but Harris will be able to keep him at bay at this point, given the fact there's no real overtaking opportunity presenting itself. But Harris right now definitely on edge and wondering, will that move be coming soon? As they roll the way through turn and number 15 here, you can see Harris, I think, also having to deal with the fact that in front of him, Larson not going comfortably through turns 15 and 16, and that's cost Harris a bit of speed as they make the way across the timeline and onto the next lap, and as they roll the way on down into one. Well, Logston here, I think, has got the opportunity. He's very close. Surely he's got to look up the inside here. It's now or never as he makes his way into that braking zone. He's going for it here. It's Logston on the left, Harris on the right, and as they make the way into the braking zone, Logston's going to commit here as the American. Will he get it hooked up? We can see there Harris trying to go for the cutback, but Logston parks it well, and as they make the way on out, well, Harris is going to come back, but Logston will now have the initiative, which is in the middle of the road, and he's got Harris on his outside, which means he can really squeeze Harris if he so desires. And as they make the way through the left-hander of 5, it is the case here, heading into the braking zone. Logston now defending versus Harris. Harris has got his nose ahead, but the thing is Harris has got to go the long way round here. Logston can really taper this apex nicely, but look at this from Harris. He's decided to try and go for the cutback in the run to 7, but it's not enough in the end, and Logston gets it now, and that's a critical run out of the corner for Logston. I think he'll feel safe. We stay with them as they make the way towards turn number 8. You can see Harris trying to come back, but Logston covering it off here and taking the lead of the Pro class there in a nice move and sequence. And well, Harris trying to come back, but not right there. Could he make it work? But meanwhile, as we look from them to what is Jermaine Warren, meanwhile, it is the case the Ferrari 488 driver here finding himself in the long queue behind what is there in front of them of Joe Nagy as they make their way through the first arena section towards the second one. But it is the case that Nagy in front right now, definitely feeling the pinch behind as he makes his way into the right-hander, and as he does, I do believe he's a Rockefeller Racing driver as well, so we'll get that corrected on the broadcast next time around as he makes his way in to turn number 12 in a bit further back. We are here in the Dan Ockerenza has had a bit of a slow moment at turn number 11, and as a result has lost the place to Lee Porter, has the Chilean as he makes his way in to turn number 15 as they roll their way through the right hander here. 10 minutes complete, we've still got 15 minutes to go. It is the case this race, it feels as though it's been longer, but I can assure you it's all only been condensed into 10 minutes so far, and we've still got 3/5 of the race to go, and the action is still plentiful in supply as they make their way on around. And speaking of plentiful in supply, well, Jesse Jameson Jr. has gained 7 places since the start. He's gaining ground right now. Is the middle of the pack racing driver from the United States in the Mercedes AMG, and as he rolls his way through turn number 2 here, he's got a bit of pressure from behind in the form of Lee Porter as they make their way out to turn 4 and in the run down towards turn number 6. But as we say hello to Lee Porter there in the Twitch chat, of course, Max LP80 there. It is case Lee Porter right now in the Audi R8 LMS trying to get close to that Mercedes, but the one thing we definitely know about the Mercedes, it is not changed in terms of that balance of points, is how strong it is on the straights. But Lee Porter going all in here on the inside, and Will Jameson being a bit polite here, and as we briefly lose Lee Porter, it's the case where he went for it. It's now going to be a drag race up towards turn number 11, but you can see the turn number 7, but you can see the dust off the racing line there that Lee Porter picked up, and Will Porter definitely looking as though he's trying to make that move, trying to get the message to Jameson, look, I'm coming for you. But I think it was the case, it was bold on the brakes, but Jameson having an answer, and the dust that Porter picked up on his tyres has not helped him in terms of getting that traction through 7. As they make the way down towards 11 now, it is the case behind Dan Ockerenza here trying to get close as well in the battle for what is effectively P3 in the AM class here. They're fighting for the final spot of the AM podium as they make the way into turn number 12, and I think right now the privateer just being patient and waiting. He's got time, he's not quite at the halfway point of this race yet, so he does have the capacity, he's just got to stay with them. Meanwhile, speaking of staying with a target here, John Wilding making his way on past Glenn Bratton there. Bratton taking a lot of momentum out of himself through turns 9 and 10, getting it slightly wrong in the Audi R8 as they make their way through into turn number 11 here. And Wilding, of course, in that incident, and as soon as I say that, well, that's the commentator's curse for you. He has another incident, does the DNA Motorsport driver. Just a brief kiss to the wall there. It'll be likely that he'll reverse the car once he gets the anti-stall off. And as they make the way on around right now, John Wilding not having a happy day. I was about to say after that incident at turn number 1, and we do believe that Braden Melling was in a similar incident, although whether the two came together as part of that incident, we're not quite sure. We didn't quite catch that on camera, we haven't had the word in our ear. But as they make the way on to another lap here, with now the halfway point of this race being reached on this lap, on what is lap number 8. It is the case we see at Spitzkehre trying to get some more ground on Fernando Takahashi, trying to regain place in the Pro-Am class here. Currently P21 overall, P8 in the Pro-Am class, Takahashi P7 in the class by comparison. They're both caught behind Glenn Bratton, and as we ride on board the gearbox here, Glenn Bratton, you can see as he goes a little bit deep into turn 3 and through 4 he rolls here. It is the case of Bratton now in a very uncomfortable position, which is he's being drafted by 2 very fast cars in the straight line, and that's the Mercedes and also the BMW M4, and as they make the way down. Well, the Audi no slouch in the acceleration stakes, but it is the case of that 6.3 litre V8 engine of the Mercedes showing its prowess on the straights as Bratton out breaks himself into the corner, but then again he might be just focusing on bringing the car to a close here and bringing those points home, given the fact that the rate of attrition we've seen so far. We've had 1 driver retire, and we've had a couple of drivers have some nightmare moments on the circuit, but as they roll the way on through it. Meanwhile, we can tell you in the battle for P11 overall, Spencer Torrance from Firelight Motorsports has made his way into P11. He's found his way past Jermaine Warren, and he's continuing to push here. And in terms of lap times right now, Torrance is outpacing Joe Nagy in front in the hunt for P10 overall, and well, I think Torrance really wants to gain a bit more ground as he makes his way into the right-hand return at number 1 here. Meanwhile, Lee Porter just a little bit further back. It is the case, continue to put that pressure on Jameson as they make the way down towards turn at number 2, that's Jameson Jr., and as they make the way into this braking zone, well, Lee Porter, we know, one of the late breakers here, we saw that turn number 6 in particular, gets a really nice run through 2 and 3, and going through 4, he has to back out slightly, but he angles himself well here, and as we ride on board with Lee Porter in the Audi, of course, pushing that V10 engine all the way up to maximum. Well, you're going to see that Jameson's good defend on the inside here as they make the way up into the braking zone. Now, as he tries to go all the way around the outside, we look back to the exterior cameras here, and Will Jameson Jr. backing out there. I don't think he's got enough, and I think he's more conscious of the fact there's no point in fighting, given the fact they've still got ground to gain, they've got time to gain as well, and therefore they could be win with a chance of going hunting after the likes of Joe Nagy, who's up in P10 right now. But Lee Porter into P13, and that is P3 in the AM class versus rival Jameson Jr. as they make the way into turn number 8. But as they come through the left-hander here, in this case we look from then to Shane Larson. And you remember earlier on we were talking about the fact that Shane Larson did not look overly comfortable in the Porsche 911 around here in terms of that initial opening pace, whereas the case he's settled down quite nicely. He's not on the pace of the top four, and therefore he is running at the bottom end of the remaining pro drivers on the circuit. The fact that John Lauzon's in the pits at the moment, still having work done on the car, but Shane Larson right now P5 overall and in the pro class. He has James Loxton behind the Pro-Am leader, who right now really wants to buy that position. Well, he's going to get it as Larson takes a little bit too much. Makes curve and almost swings it back onto the path there. Harrison, I think, snapping the brakes on, and Larson doing well to stop that car as he now gets it turned. But Larson there just carrying a bit too much rear momentum through one, and the car coming loose, and that drops him all the way down to P9. Meanwhile, up front, well, it's happened off camera, we haven't seen it, but Tanner Dibble is now your race leader ahead of what is Jason Landry here. The DNA Motorsports driver's found his way on through, and now he's going to try and hold on to the very end. But to be fair, Landry's not too far behind. It's not as though he's had a major off track. Landry is right there, only 4.5 tenths off of the leader as they make the way into turn number 8. Now rolling the way through the left-hander here. The thing with Dibble, of course, is, and we saw this in the GT4 Championship earlier this year, hosted by Middle of the Pack Racing League, is the case when Dibble's got the bit between his teeth and he's all hooked up. He just seems infallible and unstoppable, and right now looking good as he makes his way into turn number 11. But the 69 driver's still got plenty of distance to go, as meanwhile we look to Fernando Takahashi, who in P19 is battling with, as we can see there, Michael Zett behind, and just a bit in front of them, Roger Ganesh, in the Ferrari here, trying to outdrake the BMW Speaker in the battle for P17 overall, and that is effectively P6 in the Pro-Am class. It's going to be Ganesh on the left, Speaker on the right. It's a bow on the brakes into the corner, and behind there you can see that Zep taking a shot on the inside here for QZ Motorsports versus Takahashi. Well, they make their way through the corner 2 by 2. Takahashi's caught there on the side of Michael Zep. I think Zep, they're getting his elbows out a little bit. Meanwhile, Ganesh is going to go side by side into turn number 7 versus Speaker, but Speaker hangs it around the outside there and gets the job done for the time being. Meanwhile, Takahashi coming back versus Zep, and to be fair, I think Zep giving way there after the contact between the two of them, respecting the fact he may have knocked the privateer off circuit, and well, that's racing respect being shown, and it is fair play to them. But as they make the way up towards turn number 11 right now, it is the case. We had a couple of changes, Speaker up to P17 and Takahashi up to P19, and as they roll the way on through, we look from them back to the battle for the lead here, and it is the case that Tanner Dibble under that pressure from Jason Landry as we ride on board with Jason Landry making his way out to turn number 6. As he heads on down towards turn 7, it's a short straightaway this one. It's the case here. Well, Landry we saw in a situation like this at the Red Bull Ring where he was put to the test versus Burtonshaw, and he ran very close to the leader for a long period of time but fell off in the end. Now think about this, it's the case that when he's running in the draft of the car in front on the straights, it's brilliant. He'll be gaining the extra straight line speed. It can be worth 2 to 3 miles an hour depending on the length of the straight. The downside of this is he's running in the draft of dirty air off of the car in front, and these cars, these GT3 class cars, having significant aero packages on them, it means that the car in front is leaving a trout of hot warm air in its wake, and Jason Landry is driving into that, and it means those front tyres are going to be heating up the longer and longer he stays in that hot air. Now it's quite cool here today at the Hockenheimring. It's not overly hot, but you can imagine there will be a critical threshold with those front tyre temperatures start to get overly warm. It is the case Landry will start to feel the pinch on that front end, and also the rear tyres he's got to worry about as well, because he pushes those too hard and they start to get too hot. It'll be the case that Porsche is going to start sliding through the corners, but no such trouble there as they make their way through turn 1. But you can see there in the roll to that right hand on the medium speed apex in turn 1, Landry having to back off slightly and take a bit of a different line in order to mitigate the understeer of that dirty air in front. And that's one other thing. When you're running in the dirty air of another car, you're losing front aero, and that means you can experience quite a bit of understeer on the car. The car just wants to point in a straight line rather than turn in. And Landry right now, as he gets closer and closer to Dibble in the charge, all the way up towards the hairpin of turn 6. Will he think about it this time? He thinks, he takes a peek, he trail breaks his way, and he's going to commit. But does he fully go in? No. In the end, you could see Dibble there was wondering if it was coming. He was getting ready to chuck the steering lock open to the left, but Landry there sizing him up and seeing how he reacted there. A clever feint from Landry to try and get Dibble to give him the space voluntarily, and not to happen this time. But you can imagine how Landry has definitely set a precedent, and within the 6 minutes and the final lap to go, we could see that move be fully executed next time around. But meanwhile, Spencer Torrance continuing to charge here. He's behind Joe Nagy now in this pack of 3 drives, and that's Jermaine Warren at the back of the trio, The Torrance in the middle, and Nagy goes for a spin at the hairpin. That is very unfortunate for Joe Nagy there, who currently is reversing out the corner. This is going to cost him time as we see everybody coming to a stop there, all wary of the fact that Mercedes is parked, and he's got himself back up to speed there as Dan Ocaranza has gained a number of places since we last saw him. It's the case of Chilean now up to P14, P4 in class, and with Nagy having that spin, could he potentially go for P13 and get himself onto the final step of the podium in the AM class here, where he'll dare to dream to believe after a difficult day at the Red Bull Ring? I can assure you that, as he rolls about. Lee Porter's just had an off at turn number 8. They're rejoining from the grass, and well, that's going to release Nagy back up into P12. More importantly, him P2 in class. And meanwhile, one driver we have not talked about at all since really the grid order, Jose Maury here from QZ Motorsports in the McLaren, the rare McLaren, the sole McLaren in this grid, the MP4 12C. And it is the case, whilst it may be an old GT3 machine, right now chasing Arthur Speaker here in the hunt for P16 overall. In this case, these two in different classes. Maury gets a bit wrong coming out to turn number 10 there, running a bit wide, but trying to put the pressure on the Rockefeller Racing driver. And as he rolls his way into the right hand here, it is the case. Number 233 drives just got to wait. An opportunity will come if he can keep the pressure on. But as he rolls his way through turn at number 12 here, he's safe from Michael Zepp, who's 6 seconds back. His main rival for that P6 in the AM class and that P17 overall as he heads into turn 15. But meanwhile, we look to our leaders here, and we said about the move potentially coming on the next lap. Well, it is the case that Landry once again very close to the back of Dibble, and as the 69 car tries to hold on versus the number 5 driver, it is the case that Dibble doing everything in his power for DNA Motorsports right now. You can see Landry taking a look to the inside there into 11, no way through as they make the way into the stadium section, and as they do, both drivers there dipping as deep as they can onto that exit curve to try and carry a bit more speed out to turn number 11 into 12. And of course at this point now Dibble will be running on the maximum limit here, and Landry needs to push him just a little bit beyond that limit in order to try and get him to make a mistake. But the thing with Dibble is we've rarely seen mistakes from him all year, and it is the case as he makes his way to the end of this lap with what is now lap number 14 underway. 3 more laps to go, 4 minutes still left on the clock, and as he makes his way into the right hander here, Dibble holding on for now, but Landry definitely teeing up a big move. Meanwhile, further back, I can tell you, it is the case that things are starting to settle down for the most part, although Jermaine Warren is closing on the back of Spencer Torrance. And this is in the battle for the final spot in the overall top 10, and also for P4 in the Pro-Am class between the two Pro-Am drivers. But as they make the way through turns 15 and 16 here, Warren having the rotation in the Ferrari, Torrance having the speed in the BMW, and then in between the two drivers settle their differences in terms of the BOP. And as they make the way across that timeline up towards turn number 1 here, we look back to our leaders, and meanwhile Tanner Dibble, the Pro leader and overall leader, defending on the inside into turn 6, and Landry trying to get Dibble now on the comeback here, coming out of the corner. Dibble goes a little bit wide, Landry gets the momentum, but has he got enough in the run to turn number 8? No, he does not by the looks of things right now. They come through 7. Well, he's going to go for it here. Dibble's going to commit to defend in the middle of the road. Landry's going to look around the outside. Dibble brings it nicely to the apex there and stops the car just in time. But Landry's now squirming left, right and centre. And as we ride on board the gearbox here of our race leader, you can see Landry really close, but he's not quite there. He needs that final 5% to get him ahead right now, and he can't quite find it. And that's the thing as well, when these drivers are in the same car, you have to keep in mind the only difference between these two cars is how much brake bias they're running towards the front or the rear. Everything else is the same setup. It comes down to the driver and how they approach the situation and how they manage the car. And both drivers doing very well to manage the push, but Dibble goes deep. And as they make the way through 15, there's a bit of traffic as well in the form of Christensen, who's run off circuit. But as they make the way out to turn number 16 here, Landry has to back out again, given the way the apex table at 16 couldn't carry the speed through. And Dibble holds the lead once more. 2 laps to go based on mental maths. And as they make the way out on 1 and down towards 2, it's the case Dibble now definitely feeling the pressure here as they make the way into turn number 2. Rolling the way in for the 15th time of asking. It's the case that Dibble defends. Landry pushes on. But the thing is, each and every time Dibble defends, he only leaves himself open to a bigger offensive from Landry. And right now as they make the way through the Parabolica curve up towards the Spitzkehre hairpin, Burtonshaw 3 seconds back. He can't get himself into this fight right now. They're not taking enough time out of one another. But Dibble's having to defend hard here as he breaks on the inside, making his way into turn 6. Landry's going to try and go all the way round. Dibble tries to essentially cut off as much as possible, but Landry gets alongside, and as the drag race up to turn, I think Landry's done enough here to give himself the authority to turn 7, and Dibble has to back out for the time being. But surely he's going to look back at it for turn number 8, and Landry's got to go defensive immediately here. He does, and Dibble now trying to size up his opponent. Now the hunted becomes the hunter as they make the way through turn 9 into 10. Burtonshaw 2.6 seconds behind. He can see this battle's going on. He wants to get into it as well, but can he get close enough? That's the thing. As they make the way up into turn number 11 here, past the stationary camera, full speed in the run to turn number 11. And as they make their way through the right hand, and no such attempt at a counter-attack from Tanner Dibble right now, but he's still got time, it's not over. Meanwhile, in the battle for the final spot on the AM podium, Hockenheimring here going a bit deep into turn number 6, but you can see there in return, Jermaine Warren in P12. It is the case they're going a bit deep out of the corner in return, and Jefferson Jr. behind is trying to get into that fight for that final spot on the AM podium. Hockenheimring was trying to make his way past Warren to give himself space, but Hockenheimring right now really in a difficult place, as meanwhile leaders have gone on to the final lap, and as they roll the way on out here, it is the case not too much time left, and our battles will need to be settled, and we'll have to wait to see how it all ends come the checker flag the next time around. But as they make their way up towards turn number 11 here, I think Jermaine Warren feeling safe right now as they make their way into turn number 11 into the arena. But meanwhile, we look from them to the battle between our leaders here, and Jason Landry right now, he's got a little bit of backmarker traffic here. When I say backmarker, I mean a lap down, not to insult our drivers. Here's the case that Glenn Bratton, the next driver up the road in P23, and just trying to get to the end right now, and he's doing so admirably. And as Landry makes his way into the hairpin here, he'll be hoping he'll be given the space, and the blue flags will be waving. Of course, Bratton staying on the outside line. They're trying to stay well out the way of the battle for the overall lead, and the pro class leaders, they make the way into turn number 7. 25 minutes are complete, and as they make the way on in here, Bratton, well, in fact, Bratton backing out now. He's found the opportunity to back out and let both drivers go, but Landry's lost out a little bit there as they make the way through 9 and 10, and as they come on through, there's only another 6 corners to go here. Can Landry hold on to the finish, or will Dibble have a shot right at the end? There's not many overtaking places. It's the case there's only really one, and that's turn number 12, and as Landry comes out the corner, Dibble's not close enough to try and force the issue, so if Landry hooks up the next few corners, I think he will be home free as he makes his way out of 12. 4 more corners to go, 13 and 14 complete. Now it's only the double rights to complete the race, and as he rolls his way through the right-hander, hooks up nicely in 15, hooks up at 16, the checker flag waves, and it's Jason Landry who crosses the line, your winner in round number 2, ahead of Tanner Dibble P2, Luke Burtonshaw P3 to complete the overall and pro podium, and then we'll have Jordan Butler P4 here, the best of the rest in the class, ahead of James Logston, your winner by a significant margin in the prime class, by a margin of 5 seconds ahead of Milan Harris on his debut, a P2 in class, P6 overall. Matthew Smith, your winner once again in the AM class there, P7 overall. Superb drive from Smith, ahead of Justin Braggan, who completes the prime podium. Shane Larson, P10, not P10, sorry, P9 I should say, and then Spencer Torrance completes the top 10. And coming on through here to take P4 in the prime class, followed by Joe Nagy, the AM driver here on his debut. It is the case the Rockefeller Racing driver coming on home to take P11 overall, but more importantly for him, that will be P2 in the AM class. Jermaine Warren P12, and then Dan Ocaranza there completing the AM podium, P13, ahead of Jesse Jameson Jr. and then Ilya Speaker coming on around shortly to complete his race in P15. Not the race he wanted, but definitely a happier race compared to some out there on circuit today, and the 106 driver will definitely know there's still plenty of pace in the car and plenty of time to hook it up. Jose Maurer will come through to take P16. That completes the top 5 in the AM class there for the McLaren driver after switching away from the Ford GT. Great drive from him. And then we have Fernando Takahashi P17. We'll then have a Michael Zepp who is going to try and hold what is Braden Melling to the line there. P18 for Zepp from KZ Motorsports ahead of Braden Melling, who's finishes P19 at Roger Ganesh P20. And then John Wilding, the last star finishers on the lead lap, P21 in a difficult race for the Prime driver. But what a superb race, ladies and gentlemen, up and down the field. And let's take you through those finishing positions, subject to any stewards' inquiries. So it is the case in the end, of course, taking a look at our overall standings for our top 10 in particular. First and foremost, in round 2 of the Middle of the Pack Racing League GT3 Championship of 2022, brought to you on iRacing at the Hockenheimring Baden-Württemberg circuit. It is the case that Jason Landry in taking his first win of the season overall and in the pro class by 3/10 of a second in over Tanner Dibble, who finished P2. Dibble definitely showing what he didn't quite have the pace in race number 1, or in round number 1, we should say, at the Red Bull Ring. He's there and he's a contender as well, and putting himself between Landry and Burtonshaw. Speaking of Burtonshaw, a P3 finish for Burtonshaw. He won't complain of that, but he'll be wondering where the pace was compared to last time out. Jordan Butler P4, and then it's the case that James Logston, the first our Prime driver, said the Prime winner, P5 overall. A superb result there for team at Bear Pope's driver, ahead of Milan Harris on his debut for Rockefeller Racing, taking P6, second place in the Prime class. Matthew Smith, your AM winner there, P7, ahead of Justin Braggan, Shane Larson, and Spencer Torrance. And then best of the rest there, P11 and P2 in the AM class, Joe Nagy. But as we look to our individual standings, starting with our pros, of course, it is the case there. We can see Jason Landry taking that win, as we said previously, ahead of Tanner Dibble and Burton Shaw completing the pro podium. Jordan Butler just not quite on the pace compared to the top three today. Shane Larson the same as well, struggling it would seem with the car at certain points, and John Lauzon ruined what could have been after a difficult day today for the Blue Flag Motorsports driver. Meanwhile, in the Pro-Am class, it is the case that we can see here the confirmation of James Logsdon, Milan Harris and Justin Braggan completing your podium for the Pro-Am class there. Brilliant driving from all three, but Logsdon today able to put the woes and concerns of the Red Bull Ring and that rivalry with Spencer Torrance to bed for the time being and deliver a superb result. And I think he may have felt at the end of the Red Bull Ring he had the pace to win at the Red Bull Ring. It wasn't to be, but today he's picked up his first win, and well, will it continue? We'll wait to see. Spencer Torrance there, P4, not quite there today on the pace, but still a P4, a solid performance, and he'll carry that through into the next round. Jermaine Warren, P5, not able to hook it up today in the Ferrari by comparison with the Red Bull Ring, and he'll be wondering where it went wrong at the Hockenheimring. They'll be doing a lot of data work, the Privateers team, and then we'll see Ilya Speaker there, P6 in the end, is against the Rockefeller Racing driver, having a tough race to begin with, but recovering it well to P6, ahead of Fernando Takahashi, Braden Milling, Roger Ganesh, and John Wilding, and both Ganesh and Wilding having difficult races of their own, but in the end just finishing a second behind Milling, and Milling as well leading that trio across the line, the three of them not having the race they wanted. And as we come to the AM class, it is the case of the last of our classes, but by no means the least, Matthew Smith there with that emphatic win in the AM class by 24.5 seconds. Well, Matthew Smith definitely delivering in the Euro Cup rounds, I can tell you that. Joe Nagy, P2 on his debut, superb drive from him. Dan Ocaranza there, completing the top three. The Chilean doing a superb job after a difficult start race, dropping places at the start to recover and gain ground, and a superb podium from him. Jesse Jefferson Jr., P4, not quite able to take the fight to the Chilean of Ocaranza today, but he'll be looking to take the fight to the rival next time out, and he finished P4, 22 seconds clear of Jose Mauri, caught up in an early instant, but it is the case of the McLaren driver there, bringing home a top 5 finishing class ahead of Michael Zepp, Lee Porter, Glenn Bratton, PG Christensen, and Stefan Chalafu completing the AM standings. And unfortunately for Chalafu, that very early retirement didn't work out for him today. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, those are our results, and it is the case, all we can say now is thank you for tuning in. It's been a pleasure to bring you round 2 today, and if you have enjoyed and you want to know more about the Middle of the Pack Racing League community, then why not check out our official web addresses, including our Discord. The invite link is available on screen, and it is the case that you can go there for all the information. If you're sat right there in your chair right now or in your sofa and thinking, I love GT3s, I love iRacing, I love the look of this series, and I race in American time zone, it is the case. If you want to sign up, head to our Discord now, because we're still taking sign-ups and we'd love to have you join us. But remember, you need to sign up before the end of the Euro Cup, so by the end of round number 3, as at that point we will be closing entrance for the rest of the series, so as not to disrupt the other 2 cups and the overall championship. But if you're not looking to join us and you don't want to head to our Discord, but you're more of a Twitter person, you like following the Bluebird, it is the case you can go to our little Bluebird, which is at twitter.com/MOP Racing, to find out all the latest news and information regarding the Middle of the Pack Racing League and what's going on. But speaking of what's going on next, it is the case in a week's time, oh goodness me, we're jumping a little bit ahead of ourselves there, a bit of a misclick, my apologies, but in a week's time we'll be heading to Silverstone to wrap up the Euro Cup. Round number 3 on Saturday the 24th of September 2022. It's the case the racing will occur a little bit earlier in the week, of course. The racing will occur on Wednesday the 21st of September. We'll bring it to you as if it were live for our first feature race round of the series, and of course we'll be closing the Euro Cup. Who will be our first prize winners come the end of proceedings in round number 3? We'll find out then, but until then, thank you for tuning in, ladies and gentlemen. That's all we've got time for today. We've been the Middle of the Pack Racing League. I've been your host and commentator, Paul TX141 Walsh, and until next time, have a superb weekend. Remember to stay safe, stay well, stay smiling, but most importantly, remember to stay on track. Good night.